Is this particular storm passed in the financial sector?
No, none as storms go, but it may be that the most, Raj and I will see how we think about this. I think there's a chance, well, several ways to look at it, because in the end I think we may have crossed the inflection point of the most intense crisis, where people were having to establish policies very quickly. The government had to come up with a program very quickly. A number of governments, it's not just a US issue, of course. There have now been roughly 20 different countries have taken actions to fund their financial services sector and to either by capital infusions or recapitalizations or restructurings. So this is now a global phenomenon. But the intensity of the period post-Lehman or from Lehman shortly thereafter may be, or as Raj would say, from Fannie and Freddie, I could agree with that. That maybe we won't see as intense a period for as many large institutions going as quickly as they went. But I will just to finish out, there are still, the economy is in bad shape. The primary assets around which so much financing takes place are still deteriorating, whether that's housing prices or the consumer's credit or commercial credit. So there will be, inevitably, there will be losses in the financial services sector for the next couple of quarters, and that will cause any number of problems.
I would generally very much agree with Gary. Probably the most vulnerable large financial institutions, not just in the US, but globally, have been resolved. There may be a few more, but I think Gary used the right word, the intensity may have passed. The real question to me is whether two more macro situations will continue to place enormous pressure on financial services. One, the credit markets are still largely frozen. You can find some rays of hope, LIBOR down, but spreads continue to widen on a number of financial instruments. And the second is that what you saw, the problems in the financial services industry start to flood over into the broader economy. Now I fear we're going to see the reverse trend with the broader problems in the broader economy moving back into the financial services industry and creating significant non-performers and losses in loan categories which until recently were considered relatively secure, where there had not been a particular credit bubble.
Is there, I mean, there is this notion that if, and again, it's a sort of conventional wisdom that if you had saved Lehman, then you could have stopped it. Does that make any sense to you, or was it much broader? I mean, you seem to be saying that it's much broader, and that even if you had saved Lehman, you would have had these waves heading elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that Lehman Brothers filing bankruptcy accelerated certain events. And it triggered some unforeseen issues, such as the run on the money market funds within a week's time. But the big losses, the restructurings of other companies, I think is inevitable. It's a large storm passing through of difficulty, and then each circumstance, each company's situation will have some effect, a knock-on effect certainly. And I think Lehman had more negative effect than people anticipated at the time of the weekend of the bankruptcy.
No, I would agree. You can't say, had Lehman been saved, that certainly not the economy would have avoided the severe downturn or that there would not have been other problems. But Lehman's failure was, of all the events, probably the single most significant. Because, as Gary said, it's the various levels of capital. This was the first time all creditors were going to be at risk in any financial services company. And there was almost, I think, impossible after that to develop firewalls which were broad enough and deep enough to prevent concerns throughout the financial services industry.